Hi everyone, how you doing today? Hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you for joining me again on another live stream. This time for Fridays, and it's time to keep working on the Kanban board. Or if you want to call it Trello clone, that's fine by me. Whatever you want to call it, this is what we have so far. And today, this is the agenda. I want to end up with editable cards or editable tasks. Again, however you want to call it. I debated very much on how this should look, and I landed on simplicity over flair, meaning that the UI, the way that the UI is going to work is you click on a card and you get a dialog where you can change the description and you can save it or cancel. Pretty simple. In this way, the bonus is that you get a free dialog component. It's a very handy component. As you may know, creating dialogs is a pain in the ass most of the time. So now with this project, you get one for free that works pretty much everywhere. Wherever you want to use it, you got a dialog. And yeah, that's what we are going to do today. But first, let me show you. Last time I made a note to add autofocus on this part right here. So before, whenever you clicked on it, it was not focused. The text input was not focused, and now it is. You get the autofocus by default. Let me show you how I did that before we begin. It was quite simple actually. This would be in resources, views, components, Kanban group. In the group view, first step is to use the xref from Alpine.js so that we can create a reference to this input right here. And that is the text input for adding a card. And I gave it a very default name, input. And then we use that down here when you click the button. It used to be just setting the show add task form property to true. And then I appended this section right here using $sign next tick, which is a magic function from Alpine.js as well. Whatever you pass into this function, which is a callback function, is going to be executed after the next tick, they call it. Basically, once the HTML of the component, the Alpine.js scope, has been refreshed, this will get to execute. If you try to do it without this, it really doesn't work. It doesn't really get the focus, so you have to wait until this template here has updated based on the value of show add task form. And once that HTML segment has been rendered, then you get to call refs input dot focus. And this part right here, dot focus, that's a very basic HTML function call, and that will give the focus to that input, and that's it. Really simple. And now when you click on here, you get the autofocus by default. Okay, let's get started on editing tasks. What I want to do first is, as always, let's start with the test, just to make sure that we are confident that we can in fact update tasks. I created a new test case for this, not on the board, but on a new file that I called edit task test. This will become apparent in a minute because I want to take the editing of the task into its own Livewire component, and you'll see why. The task itself is very, very simple. Again, I'm just creating a group here, nothing special, then creating a task, no state, nothing out of the ordinary. I'm just worrying about creating a task for the group because the group ID in the task model is not nullable. But I don't care about anything else. I store that in this variable and then I create a new one in memory using make so that I can use that one for setting the new value of the description. And then I mount this edit task component that doesn't exist yet. And I pass, because we're editing a task, we need to pass the current task into that component using this parameter. I set a description to the new task description, and then I'm calling an update method within this component. And once that is complete, I want to assert that the database has a description that is the same as the new task description. Pretty standard, pretty simple. So yeah, let's start with this. Let me just make sure that everything is running on the background. I'm not gonna need UI for now, but I do have a Vite server running here, and here's where we're going to run the tests. Let's run this one. Oh, one other thing. Well, I do that later. I need to make sure that database is the database. Yeah, all of the tasks had, I was testing before, and so these descriptions are out of whack. In fact, let me start fresh. PHP artisan. Migrate fresh seed. There you go. That's better. Okay, what's the error? Unable to find component app livewire edit task, of course. So let's create that real quick. PHP artisan make livewire. And let's call it edit task. That should be enough. It's already included up here. So edit task, use app livewire edit task, and our component is right here. Unable to set component data, public property description not found in the component. So let's go to our new component edit task and let's add that description property. And then unable to call method update because there is no update method. Create one real quick. Why do I keep doing Alt Tab if I just need to do this? Okay, run previous. And now we are at the database assertion, meaning that we are at the point where we need to update the task. So failed asserting that the row in a table tasks matches the attributes with the description, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's actually, we need a task here. I am surprised that it didn't complain. Well, if you try to say it, if you try to set a property, pass in a property, and there is no value for that, there is no complaint. So I actually need a public task And then on that task, I want to say this task update. Like so. Okay, so we take the value of description that we are setting in the test and set that as the value of the task description. And we are passing. Awesome. Obviously, there is a lot that we can improve on this code, but at least we are making sure that we can create it, we can update a task in the database. And we're going to go through some of the improvements while we're working on the UI elements. So I guess the next thing we need to do is work on the UI. So as I said before, what I want to happen is that when you click on any of the cards, you get a nice dialog, and you can use that dialog to update such card. And for this purpose, I have included a free dialog component, which is in resources, views, components, dialog. And it has several subcomponents. The main component is the index one, and this is just a div that has an X data open false. This open property is the one that controls whether we see the dialog or not. That is the one that controls opening and closing the dialog. Then I'm using X modelable with the open property. I will explain more on this property in a few minutes when we get to connect this dialog with Livewire. Then I'm just passing the attributes, whatever attributes I set up in at the top level. I pass it here, and then tab index -1. And then we have a bunch of other components. The panel is the main content. So whatever you want to put in the dialog, you use the panel component. And it has a bunch of Alpine.js stuff. Oh, one other thing. For this to work, I also included a library in using npm, and it's called Alpine.js UI. No, is that? No, yeah, that's the one. So you need this library for this to work. The Alpine, the dialog component makes use of some of the support elements of this library. So you need that, and then also in app.js, you need to include this file, like so, Alpine.js UI dist cdn.min. And with that, the dialog works. So the panel, you use the panel to create the main content of the dialog, and then you use open. This open component is what you use to set the element of the UI that is going to trigger the dialog opening. So you create a component, set the content of this component, and whatever you put inside, then you can click on it and it will show the dialog. And we'll see how this works in just a second. Close all of this, and then let's get to work on the card, I guess. So let's open resources, views, components, Kanban, and then card. This is the one, well, not this one actually. Where do we go? Yes, we should, instead of working on the card itself, we should, yeah, I know what to do. Instead, let's go to the Livewire board component right here, which is making use of the card. What I want to do is set up the dialog here for each card. So let's do this. First of all, let's use X dialog. And we are going to wrap everything in this dialog here. Let's move that in here. And because the card component is going to be the one opening this dialog, I guess we can just say X dialog open, then put the card in there. This way, this makes the card component the clickable or the element that is going to trigger the dialog. And then right below it, we can design the contents of the dialog with X dialog, not like that. X dialog panel. For now, let's just give it some dummy content here. Let's say edit task, sorry. Just to see it in action. Let me check. Yeah, that checks out. Let's go ahead and see if that actually works. Unable to locate view dialog panel. It's not panel, it's panel. Okay. And if I click on one of these, we get a small panel here. And it's fully functional. It has its own close button here. So if I click on that one, it's going to close. If I click outside, it closes as well. If I hit escape, it closes with this. And if I click outside the element, it closes as well. So we have a very basic functionality of a dialog already working. Now all we need to do is design the contents of this to actually receive a task and display a form that we are going to use to update that card. And since we already have a component that is doing the work of editing a task, which we created in the test, why don't we give that component all of the UI elements that we need to edit that task? So let me remove this line from here and let's make use of Livewire edit task. This obviously needs a task property, I believe. So yeah, which we can do like this and just pass in the task. And very important, because we are looping through, we're creating this Livewire component inside a loop. We need to give it a wire key. So let's use wire key. And let's call it edit task and then the task ID, which I was made aware that you should use get key instead of the ID directly, just in case you want to modify this to use anything other than sequential IDs, like UUIDs, for example. So let's make the same change here. And also here. Now let's open the view, because if we do this now, this component Livewire edit task doesn't have anything on the template. So let's open that edit task template, and Instead of saying be like water, let's just say edit task. And just to make sure that actually, instead of showing edit task, let's just show the task description, because we already have that task available in the component. So this way we make sure that when we click a task, we are editing that task. See if anything broke. No. Let's click on this one. Task number 2. There you go. Task number 3. Perfect. And if we sort, so we have a problem. Attempt to read property sort on no. Why is that? I guess, let me check. Guess because we moved the Kanban card into the dialog. And it's not catching this sort item and it's passing it empty here. How do we solve this? Let me think. I guess. Hey Hamad, how you doing? Thank you for joining me. How do we solve it? I think the best way we could do this is, I guess we are at a point where we need to break this Kanban card component into its own Livewire component. Yeah. It's very interesting. It's calling sort, but it's not grabbing the. Let me check the render output real quick. So we have the XSort item here, but I guess it's because this is now within a different XData Alpine.js scope that it just doesn't see. I don't know if this is going to make. Oh yeah, I know. Okay, yeah. We need to move this into a different Livewire component, because now the root element is actually the dialog. This div is actually the dialog encapsulating the card. So that makes it a different scope in Alpine.js. So XSort item, even though it's defined here, is not going to bubble up when making this wire sort call, because it's looking for the sort item in the root div, not the children. So if we take this dialog included and we move everything into a Livewire component, so the Livewire component is going to have a root element that is going to encapsulate both the dialog and its children. So that'll be the sort item. Yeah, let's do that. I hope that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of complicated. Well, not really. Anyway, let's create a new component. PHP artisan make Livewire. I think I wanted to create this in subfolder just to keep it keep all of the Kanban related components inside its own folder. So let's say Kanban part. All right, cool. So now we have a new Livewire component inside a Kanban folder. Here, when we get to the point where we actually breaking down all of the subcomponents group for sorry, the columns are going to be their own Livewire component as well. So I'm going to put them in this folder too. I guess we can start with the UI. So let's grab all of this. Dialog included. I'm going to copy and then open sources, views, components, not components, Livewire, Kanban, card. And let's put all of that in here. And let's actually move this XOR item that. Let's remove it from here and let's put it all the way up here. Of course, we are going to need a task for this component. We'll get to that in a minute. What else? This wire key, we're going to move this outside. But first, before we do that, let's actually go here to the board. And the way that I want this to look now is Livewire hard. We're going to need to pass a task to this component. And now I need the wire key. I guess I can just do it here. Wire key equals task dash and then task ID. And now we can remove this from here. Yeah. Save that, save this. We can actually remove this dialog from here now. And we're going to have an error saying that we don't have a task available in the card component. Let me see if that's the case. Unable to find component part. Oh, that the address is wrong. Kanban card. Okay, now it's complaining about the task. Let's head over to that component. Public task. Okay. Doesn't seem to be complaining about anything else. Check the output real quick. So now, all the way up here, where is the... Here. This is the root. This is the root element of the Livewire component, and see how there is the XOR item at the very top. Let's make sure that everything else works. So click still opens the right task, and we can sort. No errors. Click, still the same card. Awesome. All right, we check the console, make sure nothing is broken, everything is clean. Okay. So we have managed to successfully break down the card into its own Livewire component. We can still sort that component, and it is still sorting that in the database. And now we have a dialog that we can trigger by clicking on any card, and that card gets its own instance of the task to edit, if that makes sense. So okay, now we can get to the contents of this card, of this dialog, sorry. And I'm guessing, for simplicity's sake, why don't we use the same form that we used to create a card? Just get this and put it in the edit task component. That works. What is this? Let's see, where do we... Okay, so this is the edit task. We need to put the form here. And that form was in the group component. Resources, views, components, Kanban, group, right? Right here. So yeah, let's take this form. Gonna be 15 down, yank, and then move to edit task, visual line, paste. Visual line, 15 down, visual line. Okay. Sometimes I have to word whatever. I've noticed that when it comes to me learning beam motions, if I say what I'm doing, it actually works. So let's see, what do we need here? This method has to change. We're going to need an update. Yeah, we actually have an update method already. And to that update method, we are going to pass nothing. We don't need to pass anything. So delete inside parentheses. There you go. And in fact, let's just remove. Let's just remove the parentheses altogether. So when we submit this form, we're going to call the update method on the edit task component, which we already created. For the task, why are you closing this form right here? And then we have a text input and wire model to the description property. We already have that as well. We have validation. We need to add validation actually. And to this description property. Let's do that right away before I forget. Let's head over to the edit task component, and just like we did with the board, we can just say, let's actually move this down. Let's actually move this down. There you go. And let's use a property here. An attribute, sorry. This would be, we can use validate, right? Did we use validate or rule? I'm going to use validate because the next thing that I want to do once this is working is I want to rework this into a Livewire form. And that is going to help me have all of the task related methods create, update, and delete into a single form component that I can then use or reuse throughout my application. So let's use validate, and the rule is required. Just before we update, let's call this validate. Okay, let's separate this a bit more. Back to the edit task. So we have the description, we validate the description, we show the error messages, we have a primary and secondary button. Now this button, the cancel button, has to close the model, sorry, the dialog. So this is not going to work. What do we do in this case? So the edit task belongs to the card. The card has the dialog. Oh, here's what we can do. I'm going to leave that empty for now. Let's just make sure that this looks good, and then I'll show you what we can do to close this dialog from a child of the card component. So I'm going to save that. That can be empty. I hope it doesn't complain about it. Anything else? I think that's it. Let's see from the UI perspective. If I click task 1, okay, that looks almost good. This is not great. I guess we can just add a few pixels of padding or margin at the top of this form. Let's do it here in the div. Class margin top. Let's go with 2. Let's go with 4. Yeah, that's better. So yeah, clicking this should close the dialog. So what we're going to do is we are going to wire up the dialog with the card Livewire component this way. So let's go over to the card component first. And here I'm going to create a Boolean. Let's call it show dialog. This is going to be false by default, right? And what am I doing? It's like I forget how to do PHP. So we have a show dialog Boolean flag, and we are going to use that to, we're going to connect this with the dialog component. What we do is we go to the card.blade.php, which is the view for the card component, and where we have the dialog here, I can say wire model equals show dialog. So what that is doing, as I showed you before, let me actually show you again. Closing everything. If I go to this dialog component, and that's on the index, the root component, this xModelable property is going to say, is going to connect this open property that I'm passing here, and is going to connect it to any Livewire model property that I define. Meaning that is that if the Livewire property, in this case show model, changes value, is going to automatically change the value of open, and vice versa. If open from Alpine.js changes, it's also going to change the value of show model. It's like welding both of them together using X modelable. And because I'm using attributes here, when I pass the wire model as an attribute here, it's going to go into the component. Having that, I can go back to the card and let's add a utility or a helper function. And let's call it close model. What was that? Change the rendering to square to that. Okay. And all I'm doing here is just saying show dialog. Sorry, this show dialog, and we set it to false. Now we can go into the children of this component, which is the edit task component, and on button on the click on when we click this button, we can just say, we can do this in a couple of ways, and the easiest one is to just say parent close model. That is one way to do it. When it works well when the children is a direct descendant of the component that has the method that I want to call. If this were like 2 or 3 levels down, it's not a direct descendant, then I would go for dispatching an event. But I guess dispatching an event in this case would be kind of overkill. We could say instead, I guess I believe it's dispatch, something like that, and just say close model or something. And then we could go to the card component and just listen for that using on. What are you doing? Did it say model or dialog? I don't know. Model. So we could do that. It's a valid option. But in this case, it's the same thing as doing it with a parent, because I know it's the direct, the component that I'm looking for is the direct parent of this one. So let's just go with that one. Parent close model. And let's undo this. So to recap, the edit task is a children of card. Card has a method to close the model, which sets a Boolean flag to false, and that Boolean flag is welded together with an Alpine.js property that controls the visibility of the dialog. So if I set that to false, then the dialog closes as well. Let's make sure that that actually works. So click on this one, opens, cancel. Yeah, too good to be true. Alpine expression. Why are you thinking that this is an Alpine expression? Oh, because I'm using add click. I forgot that I'm using wire. Oh, sorry, Livewire. So this should be wire. Oh my god. Should be wire click. Click that one, click cancel, still nothing. Did I forget how to do parent? Unexpected token. Let me go real quick because I know this, it's with parent, but sometimes I forget the syntax of it. So let me go to Livewire, to the Livewire docs, and let's look for parent. Directly accessing the parent from the child. Oh, it's with dot. Okay. Sometimes I forget that this is not PHP itself. Okay, try that again. Click on this one, click cancel, and it closes. Bit of a stumble there, but we got to it. And that's a nice connection. Like, you can do things on parent, or you can control Alpine.js stuff using Livewire and vice versa. And they don't have to be in the same component as well. It can be somewhere else, not necessarily the direct descendant, but they can be 3 levels down, completely on another component. It's a great thing that the many things that we can do with the dispatched events. Okay. Let's since we added autofocus here, I should have the same behavior here. Let's see if we can get away with just autofocus. I'm not gonna need xref input here because the element is not showing up conditionally using Alpine.js. It's just showing up. So I guess we can just say autofocus. That works. Also, we should see the description here, right? We're editing a task. We should see the description of that task in there. Let's see why that is not happening. I guess it's because we're not even initializing the value of description when we are mounting the component. So let's go over to edit task. Let's add a mount here. Failing all the keys. There you go. This task description. There you go. Now we have a value, and it's exactly the value of the one that we clicked. Kind of don't like that it's auto selecting the text, but if it's doing autofocus, that's unavoidable, I guess. We can still sort, that's fine. Now, question of the $1 million, can we update? We should be able to just hit enter. Nothing happened. Did we wire this? We did wire it. Huh. Oh, it did. It did update it, but it didn't close Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so as you can see, it did update the thing. I just couldn't see it. Let's do it again. First task 1, save, and as soon as I click out of this, it's not refreshing here, which is weird. Well, I guess not. If I refresh this though, the value does change. So we have to fix the issue where I need to update update the card. Actually, I was going to say update the group, but not really. I just need to make sure that the card in the background changes, and also once I click save, I should be closing the model. How do we do this? Oh, here's an idea. Why don't we go here to the card component, the card components view actually. And let's say that we are going to listen to one event. Let's say, for example, that this component dispatches an event that we are going to catch on its way up, and let's call it task updated. And when that happens, we close the model. Now, all I need to do now is dispatch this task updated event from the edit task component, and we could do it just after we're done updating. So let's say this dispatch task updated. Okay, let's try this one. Task 1, task the first. Hit enter. Hey. Close the dialog and refresh. It refreshes this soul component. And I'm sure it's just that component because when we call the close model on this component, by making that call, Livewire is going to refresh the contents of this card only. It's not going to refresh all of them, only this one, because that's the one that is making the call. And because we're using wire key on all of them, Livewire is intelligent enough to know that, okay, this one had a method call, I need to re-render it, and I know which one it is because I know the key of it. So it all works. So let's try task number 2. That works fine. Can we still sort? Yes, we can. Awesome. That went well. Oh, last thing I want to do, I guess, is actually, let me check my notes just to make sure that I haven't forgotten anything. So we got that. That's fine. Oh yeah. Okay. We're going to do 2 things, and I'm going to show you what the second problem is. But the first one is that I do want to have a centralized place where I can not only just edit tasks, but I can create them and delete them. And for that, we're going to use a Livewire form. So first, let's create a form component. PHP artisan Livewire form task form. Notice that usually the naming convention would be, edit task form, create task form, but I want to have this form to be able, I want to be able to use this form component for all three operations. So I'm going to call it task form. Let's come here to edit task and let's declare it. Let's put it here, public edit task, task form. Do we call it form or just task form? I'm going to call it form. Now let's move all of the functionality that should be in the form. Let's take that off of the edit task component and put it in the form component, starting with this description. We can move this description from here, and let me open the task form component, and let's paste it here. I lost it. There you go. We can take it off from here. We are going to need the task as well. Which means we probably, do we need it here? Yes, we do. We still need to keep it here. We're going to use that task to then set the task of the task form component. Sometimes we will have a task, sometimes we won't. When we're editing, we do need a task. When we're creating one, we don't really need it. So that means that in task form, I'm going to make this optional. Was it there or here? There. Let's add a method here. And let's call it set task. This will accept a task model. And I'm going to say this task equals task, and this description equals task description. So that means I can come here to the edit task, and instead of doing this in the mount, what I can do instead is just say this form set task, this task. And let's move this update method over to the form component. See if we need to change anything. This validate, this still stays the same. We hit the update task. we can take this off here. Do we need to take this off here? I'll leave it there for now. I'm debating if the event dispatching should be here or should be part of the edit task. I'm guessing... Well, hold on. Yeah, we need to move it out of here. I shouldn't have removed the update completely because we still need that. Well, let's keep it. What we do here, instead of just change this and just say this form update, and then dispatch, which is quite clear. You can follow the dots, and this method is still wired up in the... Wait. Edit task, edit task. This is wire submitted to update, so I guess not. Yeah, I guess we don't really need the update method in card, do we? No, wait. We needed an edit. I'm confused. All over the place. Let me just close that. Edit task does have an update. This update method is wired in the form. So we're going to keep it here and then just call form update, which is going to validate and perform the update. And once that is done, we dispatch the event that is going to bubble up to the card component. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Delete that from here. Just keeping, trying to keep the responsibilities of this form to just form things, not dispatching events or anything else. That works. Here, let's save this. And one last thing that we need to do is go to the edit task view and change the wire model, because this now belongs to the form. And we say form description. Same with the error. Okay, everything should still work as it was, but now we have the functionality in a form. Let's make sure that that is the case. Task, let's call it 5th. Task. We can still sort, right? Yes, we can. Perfect. Now, last thing I want to cover. There is this problem where, let's take task number, wow. Let's take task number 3, for example. We try to update it. Let's say type updated task, but we change our mind and then hit cancel, escape. We just close this and then we go to number 2. That's fine. If we go back to number 3, the value stays there, and I don't really like that. I would like the value to be, if I canceled, I canceled. So it should be task number 3 instead of the value that I just set for it. So what did I do for this? I read about a handy little property in Alpine.js. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Maybe we do it here. At the root of this edit task component, we're going to use a property from Alpine.js called xEffect. Now, this edit task is currently within the Alpine.js scope of a model, which means that we can access the open property of the model even within this edit task, because it's the dialog, and the dialog contains the card, and the card contains the edit form. So that means that we are still within we are still within the scope of the dialog, which has this open property that we use to control the opening and closing of the dialog. So what xEffect does is going to call whatever function, or is going to execute whatever expression we put inside here, depending on what property we use within that expression. If, for example, let's say that we have a method inside the edit task component, so we're going to use wire, and let's call it reset model. Keep calling it model dialog form. The condition is I'm going to use the open property. This open property here is from Alpine.js, from the dialog. xEffect knows that if this value changes at any point, this expression is going to be called, right? And when does that value changes? Whenever we close the dialog, whether with the cancel button, with being that wired into the close model property of the card component, or by simply clicking escape, or the close button in the corner, whatever method we use, the value of open is going to change. So what I'm going to do then is create this method and decide whether or not we want to reset the values. So let's actually save this first. Now let's go to edit task, and let's create that method. Public function reset dialog form is, I'm going to call it is open, so that it's more readable in this function. So what I'm saying, what I can do is just say if is open, meaning I'm only going to do this when the dialog opens, not when the dialog closes, just to save a call to the function. And again, why am I omitting $signs? So if it's open, I can use the set task method from the form. So this form set task. And that method, what it does is, yes, it's going to reassign the task model, but it's also going to reset the value of the description property inside the form. Like this. So if everything goes well, and I hope it does, is we come here, we say edited task, but wait, I changed my mind. Click cancel, click on another one, that's fine, and then go back to the third one, and the value is there, as it should be. Awesome. We can still sort, update, and all the things. Well, that went extremely smoothly, which is always good. And we are 1 hour and 10 minutes. So I guess this is a great point to start. Quit while you are ahead. One thing that I didn't do and we're going to do next week is let's make use of the task form component that we just created, and let's move the create functionality as well into that form component so that we have a centralized place where we can create and edit tasks. And next week, we are also going to move on to archiving cards. We should have a button here where we can say delete, maybe around here. So we are going to be able to delete cards as well. And if we, I'm hoping we have time to start working on groups where we can edit groups, create new groups, and also move cards across groups. That'll be the goal for next week. Thank you so much for joining me today, all 4 of you. I hope you found any of this helpful. And if you did, don't forget to leave a like. That's helpful for me. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't. That's also very helpful. And for you as well, so that you don't miss the next live stream. And on that note, I'll see you in the next one.